Well, Amir Tibon is a journalist with the Israeli newspaper Haaretz and the author of The Gates of Gaza. His account of surviving the October 7 attacks in kibbutz Nahal Oz. He says the decision is significant.
Even though everybody was expecting this to happen, it is such a dramatic development that people are still shocked. And we are only now beginning to understand the long-term ramifications that it could have. At the end of the day, this is the first time ever that an international arrest warrant has been issued against the leader of any democratic country and against a senior Israeli official. This means that Prime Minister Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant, on a practical level, will not be able to travel to more than 120 countries right now without risk of being arrested. And it also makes it much more likely that individual prosecutions in different countries will take measures against Israelis who are involved in the war in Gaza, and this could really spin out of hand because the International Criminal Court perhaps could be pressured by the United States, could be sanctioned, but if this becomes a global phenomenon now where more and more countries take this kind of legal action against Israelis, whether it's high-ranking officers or simple soldiers who took part in the war, it could become a major problem for Israel.
Amir, you mentioned the ramifications there. What are those ramifications politically for Benjamin Netanyahu on a domestic level?
I think in the short term, this may actually cause a bit of a rally around the flag effect, and some people will support him. We heard today all the leaders of the opposition in Israel denouncing this decision by the ICC. But as the days go by, I believe it will also create some questions that Israelis will ask. How did this happen? Could it have been averted? We know that the Attorney General of Israel warned several times that if the government will not take sufficient steps to show that it is investigating complaints about human rights violations in Gaza, then eventually we will get hit. And this was dismissed by the government. And there's one fundamental question I think many Israelis will ask. How is it possible that a year after October 7, when, in the days immediately afterward, the entire world stood by Israel and world leaders were all coming here to support us, how is it possible that a year and 1 month later, we are more isolated and condemned than ever before? And this ICC decision is a great example of that, among others.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the international reaction. The US is rejecting the ICC's decision, but the EU foreign policy chief has said it should be respected. How are you viewing the different responses from global leaders and the like?
Well, none of it is a surprise. The United States is not part of the ICC and has had all kinds of criticisms about it over the years. But obviously for Netanyahu, the biggest question now is what will incoming President Trump do? Will he exert significant pressure on any country that cooperates with this decision? What happens if Netanyahu wants to fly to a European country that is part of the ICC, or maybe to Australia, and the local government has to decide between fulfilling its commitment to the ICC and at the same time, its strategic relationship with the United States. This is going to be a major issue. At the end of the road, this could lead to a situation where the United States puts so much pressure that the ICC becomes a dead letter. And this is, I think, a huge risk that was taken by the prosecutor in that regard.
So how much of Benjamin Netanyahu's fortunes rely on the movements of the incoming US President, Donald Trump?
100%. And if we could go beyond 100, I would add more digits. Everything right now is in the hands of Trump. Netanyahu's personal fate and also his political survival is in the hands of Trump. If Trump will decide to apply a lot of pressure here on behalf of Israel and specifically Netanyahu, he could really put countries in a difficult position of choosing between their commitment to international law and their relationship with the White House. If he decides he doesn't want to do it, then Netanyahu has no way to overcome this arrest warrant. And of course, the same is true for former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. And this is one example, by the way, several examples that show how much Netanyahu relies on Trump at this moment. He cannot afford any confrontation with the incoming American president. Netanyahu has lost a lot of support domestically in Israel over the past year. The majority of Israelis blame him for the failures of October 7. Many Israelis are unhappy with the current state of the ongoing war. Now, we just this week had our 800th military casualty since October 7. And he really needs to have a good relationship with Trump at this moment to show Israelis he can still get some things done for the country.
Just finally, Amir, we know that these arrest warrants haven't just been issued for Benjamin Netanyahu or Yoav Gallant, also the Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif. On a personal note, you lived through October 7. You sheltered in a safe room with your wife and your small children. You'd lost friends. You've written about this in your book. You've also seen Israel's response in Gaza. On a personal level, what is your feeling about where Israel is right now and the prospects for peace?
Well, first of all, I just want to note the arrest warrant against Mohammed Deif, the Hamas leader, is a bit of a joke because Israel killed him 3 months ago. It looks like an attempt to balance and show, oh, we also put some Hamas leader on the grill, but it's not relevant because he's no longer alive. Personally, I am really worried about the direction of things. I think Israel, we went through the most terrible day in the history of our country, and because we still have 100 hostages in the hands of Hamas as we speak, then October 7 is not really over yet. A lot of important things have happened since then. I've been writing about them, including the news of today. But for me, the biggest story in the world remains and must remain the fate of our hostages, including my two friends from Kibbutz Nahal Oz, Umri Miran and Tzachi Idan. The most important thing is to bring them back alive from Gaza. After that, we'll deal with everything from Iran to the ICC. But first of all, let's get our people back alive. This should be Israel's #1 priority. And on some days, sadly, it doesn't look to be that way.
Amir Tibon, journalist and author of The Gates of Gaza. Many thanks for your time.